Our house is at the third door of the slums grass alley. Mrs. Tang recovered from her shock, but her face was full of gratitude. Lin Yi, thank you so much for today. If you didn't come, we wouldn't know what to do. We'd be bullied. Huh, it won't happen again. Lin Yi smiled. Auntie, I'll be leaving with Xiaobo first. See you on Saturday. No, sit here, I'll cook something for you guys. Mrs. Tang naturally wouldn't let Lin Yi leave just like that. He had to thank him no matter what. The more Mrs. Tang looked at Lin Yi, the more she liked himself. This young man had the arrogance of a rich young master, but he was reasonable. He was scary when he was domineering, but he was usually very easygoing with people he was familiar with. Not today, it's getting late. Let's go on Saturday, we'll be there on time. Lin Yi's phone vibrated. It was probably a message from Meng Yao or Yushu, so Lin Yi had to get back as soon as possible. All right then. Mrs. Tang let go of Lin Yi after seeing how insistent Lin Yi was. Go send your classmate off. Okay. Tang Yun nodded unwillingly but didn't refuse this time. She lowered her head and walked in front of Lin Yi without a word. Lin Yi smiled faintly and turned to leave with Kong Xiaobo. Tang Yun followed behind them, not knowing what she was thinking. All right, you don't have to send me off if you don't want to. You can go back. Lin Yi looked at Tang Yun amused. I didn't. Tang Yun humphed. Today. Thank you, I saw it on the way, that's all. If it were someone else, I'd probably care too. Lin Yi said, using the word maybe. In truth, Lin Yi really wouldn't care if it were someone else. If he cared about everything, then there was no need for him to stay here anymore. He might as well become an Ultraman or a Spider-Man. Tang Yun of course didn't believe that Lin Yi said it was on the way. If it wasn't for her, why would a young master like him care about something like this? But the more she owed Lin Yi, the more uneasy she felt. Do you really want to be friends with me? Tang Yun suddenly raised her head to look at Lin Yi. Tang Yun's reaction surprised Lin Yi. He was surprised at Tang Yun's sudden question. In fact, it took a lot of courage for Tang Yun to ask this question. Lin Yi had interfered in her family's life. It was impossible for Tang Yun not to have any thoughts about it. She wanted to confirm what Lin Yi's goal was. However, when Tang Yun asked this question, although it looked like she was in the right, she was actually very guilty. A girl asking this kind of question made Tang Yun's face burn. Fortunately, it was night time and Lin Yi shouldn't be able to see it. Tang Yun was nervous, so when Lin Yi said, Tang Yun took it as an acknowledgement of her question. Do your parents know? Will they agree? Tang Yun didn't wait for Lin Yi to answer and continued to ask. To be honest, Tang Yun was also nervous. Tang Yun saw what Lin Yi did for her family. She didn't know how she felt about Lin Yi. She hated him, but there was also a special feeling. My parents? Lin Yi paused again. Who were his parents? He didn't know either. Old Lin said he was an orphan. Tang Yun took Lin Yi's days as hesitation. Tang Yun's fragile heart tightened, and the budding feelings disappeared in an instant. He wasn't too bad with her, but this girl. Lin Yi shook his head. It was already good enough that she didn't put the food that Meng Yao had eaten back into the box, pretending that it hadn't been touched at all. It had to be Meng Yao. The miss wasn't too bad to him after all. Lin Yi thought as he scooped a bowl of rice and started wolfing it down. After dinner, Lin Yi cleaned the box and put the concert disc he bought in the afternoon on the coffee table before returning to his room. Lin Yi was about to give the old man a call to talk about the situation here. After closing the door, Lin Yi dialed old Lin's number. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yi wouldn't contact old Lin when he was on a mission, and he'd only let him know that he was safe when the mission was over. The phone rang a few times before old Lin's vulgar voice came through. Hello. Lin Yi said after a moment of silence. It's E. How's the mission going? Old Lin was evidently drinking, and Lin Yi could even hear the sound of him eating peanuts. Lin Yi didn't know what to say at the mention of the mission. I say, old man, what kind of mission did you give me? I'm just following the miss around like a follower every day. Are you trying to make me a high-class servant? You'll know what the mission is after some time. Old Lin said, evidently not wanting to waste his breath on this topic. After some time? How long? That was Lin Yi's main concern, and it was also a prelude to what he was going to say next. Haha, as long as you want. There's no time limit. It all depends on how fast you finish it. Old Lin said nonchalantly. As long as I want. Really? Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before speaking his mind. Old man, I kinda want to stay here. Oh, you want to stay there already? That's great. Old Lin was a little excited at Lin Yi's words. That means your mission is progressing well. It's a good start. What do you mean? Lin Yi was a little confused. What did this have to do with the progress of the mission? It's nothing. If you think it's good, then don't come back. I'll settle down there in a few years. You can build a foundation there first, have a few kids, and I'll be a grandfather. Old Lin seemed to approve of Lin Yi staying in Songshan, even more so than Lin Yi himself. Lin Yi thought he'd have to spend a lot of effort to convince Old Lin to let him start a peaceful life. But he didn't even get to say anything, and Old Lin was telling him to have kids already? What was the meaning of this? Was he planning to retire? I say, old man. What about the missions in the future? Lin Yi was a little suspicious. Was this the same stingy old man he knew? Giving him dangerous missions just to earn some money. Missions? There's no more missions in the future, this is the last one. Old Lin said. Of course, if you want to exercise your muscles, you can take on a few missions. That's... Lin Yi wondered if Old Lin had drunk too much. At first, Lin Yi was very hesitant on how to tell the old man about it. After all, he didn't belong to this kind of life before, but the old man was already telling him to have kids before he even said anything. Lin Yi was a little sweaty, but one of his worries had been resolved just like that. And he'd go hit on Tang Yun tomorrow. He didn't have to worry about anything anymore. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't touch the two misses of his family, Lin Yi wouldn't have gone so far. Is there anything else? Widow Wang from the village entrance is here and I want to catch up with her. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Bye. Old Lin didn't wait for Lin Yi to say anything before hanging up. Chapter 192. Chapter 192. Dilapidated slums. Lin Yi drove Yushu's yellow beetle to Kong Xiaobo after making sure that Meng Yao and Yushu weren't going out. Faubert had already gotten the driver's license and he'd given it to Lin Yi the day before. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of getting mugged by the police now. The two misses were watching the Blu-ray of Su Sherhan's concert, the one Lin Yi had bought from the bookstore. They wouldn't be going out for a walk. Lin Yi gave Kong Xiaobo a call before leaving the house. The cheapest knockoff phone these days was only 100 or 200 kuai, and it was normal for high schoolers to have their own phones. Tang Yin was probably the only one who didn't have one. Xiaobo, where are you? Lin Yi asked. I'm at home, not leaving yet. Boss, ready to go? Kong Xiaobo had been looking forward to this day for a week now. Going to the school beauty's house for dinner was a rare honor, and so Kong Xiaobo had woken up early waiting for Lin Yi's call. Where's your house? I'll come pick you up. Lin Yi said. You'll come pick me up? Kong Xiaobo blinked, not understanding what Lin Yi was getting at. My house is on Ningshi Street. Boss, which way is it? If it's not on the way, why don't we meet at the slums? Ningshi Street. Wait for me then. Lin Yi said before hanging up. Yushu's car had a GPS system installed, and Lin Yi keyed in Ningshi Street and started driving. Ningshi Street was actually on Lin Yi's way to school every day, and it was pretty easy to find. It didn't take long before Lin Yi parked the car near the bus stop. Lin Yi called Kong Xiaobo and told him that he was waiting for him at the station. Not long after, Lin Yi saw Kong Xiaobo, who was dressed very handsomely, running to the station platform. He looked around as he ran, obviously looking for Lin Yi. Xiaobo here. Lin Yi opened the front passenger door and waved at Kong Xiaobo. Boss. Kong Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi and his car in surprise. He quickly ran over and asked, Is this your car? Hee. Lin Yi laughed. He didn't confirm or deny it. For this kind of thing, it would be difficult to explain too much. It was better not to explain at all. Sure enough, Kong Xiaobo thought that Lin Yi had acquiesced. He got in the car and said, Boss, I didn't expect your family to be so well off. I thought you came from a poor village. It's not too bad. Lin Yi told the truth. If the missions were as his old man said, only a few hundred or a few thousand, then his family would only be okay at best. If it were the market price, then his family would be a millionaire a long time ago or even a billionaire. Of course, Lin Yi didn't want to be too calculative with his old man. If the old man was a miser, then so be it. He didn't lack food or drinks and he'd just treat it as earning some money for his old man's retirement. But boss, why'd you buy a car like this? Looks like a girl's car. Look at the cushions, the interior. Kong Xiaobo said as he looked at the interior of the car. Ha. Lin Yi smiled. This car was Yushu's, of course it was feminine. Ah? All of a sudden Xiaobo's eyes stopped on an ornament on the rearview mirror. That's Yushu? Boss, no way. You have a crush on her? Kong Xiaobo's eyes went wide as he stared at the decoration in disbelief. It was a small photo frame and it was Yushu in it. Lin Yi didn't notice it before, but now that Kong Xiaobo mentioned it, he looked at the decoration. He was speechless. This decorating. It's the owner's. Boss, I know. Kong Xiaobo smiled as if he knew everything. Boss, I'm a man too, I know. It's fine, I won't tell Tang Yun. Lin Yi took it off and tossed it into the drawer on the passenger seat. Yeah, hurry up and hide it. It'll be bad if Tang Yun sees it. Xiaobo nodded in agreement. Lin Yi sweated and almost crashed the car. Slums referred to the single-story houses in the built-up areas of the city. The houses were old, the quality was poor, the average floor space was small, the infrastructure wasn't complete, the transportation was inconvenient, the security and fire hazard were high, and the environment was dirty, messy, and bad. Many developing cities had such shanty towns. Of course, not all of the shanty towns were bungalows. There were also some buildings, but these buildings were 3-story red brick houses. They were not much better than bungalows. There were no gas pipes, no network engineering, and so on. Some didn't even have a kitchen vent. Lin Yi's old house was mostly this kind of dilapidated house, so he didn't think much of it. Kong Xiaobo, on the other hand, had only passed by the slums before and had never seen it. He was completely shocked when he saw it today. He didn't expect Tang Yun to live in such a terrible environment. Dirty coal piles, firewood piles, smelly garbage and smelly drains. It was a horrible environment. And in this horrible environment Tang Yun, the commoner beauty of first middle school, was born. Boss, this environment. Kong Xiaobo couldn't help but close the window. He couldn't stand the smell. The place I used to live was pretty much like this. Lin Yi said with a smile, not thinking much of it at all. There was one more thing he didn't say, it was the battlefield, much worse than this. He could hide in the gutters and swamps for days. Lin Yi found grass alley and turned the car in. But after turning in it was difficult to drive in. Every door was full of junk. Lin Yi had no choice but to park the car at the entrance of the alleyway. The residents in the alleyway looked at the brightly colored, obviously expensive car, a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, there were very few cars coming to Shanty Town. In addition to taxis, there were almost no residents here who could afford a car. Since they could afford a car, they did not live here. They had already bought a house in a better place. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo got out of the car, locked the car and followed the number on the door to Tang Yun's house. The third door should be here. Lin Yi looked at the dilapidated door and sighed slightly. He guessed that Tang Yun's family's condition was poor, but in this slums Tang Yun's family's condition should be below average. Tang Yun's yard was obviously a lot more dilapidated than the others, and it probably hadn't been repaired in a long time. He didn't know if it was because of the lack of time or because of the lack of money, but Lin Yi felt a little sad looking at it. Chapter 193. A photo. Lin Yi knocked on the door and Tang Yun's voice came from the yard after a while. Who is it? It's me, Lin Yi said. There was an obvious silence on the other side of the door. Then with a creak the door opened, revealing Tang Yun's beautiful face. There was no smile on it, only coldness. Come in. Lin Yi paused. Tang Yun's attitude wasn't good to him before, but she was honest and straightforward. She'd throw a tantrum at him and step on his feet. Today, however, Tang Yun's eyes were filled with coldness. Kong Xiaobo didn't notice that as he followed Lin Yi into Tang Yun's yard. He pointed at the mess in the yard, surprised at the sight. Boss, look. Where's the cherry tree? People who lived in single-story houses usually planted things in their yards. Almost every house in Lin Yi's hometown had that, so he wasn't too curious about it. Kong Xiaobo grew up in the city, so he didn't see much of these things. He was excited but curious at the same time. Is that your classmate? Mrs. Tang's voice came from the house. It was an old brick house, and it was impossible to tell the age of the house. The house was made of red bricks and there was no cement on the outside. The windows were sealed with plastic sheets and the door was covered in rust. But in this shabby environment, there lived a girl full of sunshine, the commoner beauty of first middle school. Yeah. Tang Yin replied faintly, her tone no longer carrying any anger or dissatisfaction towards Lin Yi. It was as if she was talking to a stranger. Lin Yi's here, come in. Mrs. Tang said happily as she walked out of the house to greet Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo. Auntie. Lin Yi greeted as he entered the house with Kong Xiaobo. It was a typical old-fashioned room with a small kitchen and a small room behind the small kitchen. Tang Yin's room was probably there. "Come in and sit." Mrs. Tang called Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo in before turning to Tang Yin. "Yin, you keep Shuin company, I'll go prepare the barbecue." "Oh." Tang Yin nodded, not objecting as she sat on the chair opposite Lin Yi. The sofa was limited and Tang Yin didn't want to squeeze with Lin Yi, so she chose to sit opposite Lin Yi. Mrs. Tang went out to work and Tang Yin didn't say anything as well. She sat on the chair, resting her chin on her hand as she stared at the floor, deep in thought. Lin Yi didn't know what was wrong with Tang Yin today. She treated him so strangely, like he was a stranger. Sitting there awkwardly wasn't a good idea, so Lin Yi tried to start a conversation. "Is uncle in the house?" Lin Yi heard noises from inside the house. The door was closed, but with Lin Yi's hearing, it didn't escape his ears. "My dad's injured at work, he can't get up from the bed," Tang Yin explained. "Injured at work? Is it serious?" Lin Yi was startled. He'd imagined all sorts of situations for Tang Yin's family, but he didn't expect Tang Yin's father to be injured and bedridden. "He's saving money for surgery later this year. If the surgery is successful, he'll be able to recover," Tang Yin said faintly as if she was talking to a stranger. "Injured at work? Then why didn't the company pay?" Kong Xiaobo interrupted. "What can we do if the factory owner doesn't want to pay?" Tang Yin seemed to have accepted her fate. She was helpless against the factory owner who didn't want to pay. She wasn't angry anymore. "I'll go see Uncle Tang." Lin Yi stood up and wanted to go inside, but Tang Yin stopped him. "My dad is resting, don't go." Tang Yin didn't let Lin Yi in. She didn't want to have anything to do with Lin Yi anymore, so naturally she didn't want him to go inside the house. If she owed Lin Yi another favor, how could she pay it back? Tang Yin wasn't ignorant of the ways of the world. On the contrary, her father's incident made her and her mother suffer the coldness of the world, and they had a deeper understanding of it. Why would Lin Yi help her family? In her family, other than herself, what else could be valued by Lin Yi? In the end, when they couldn't pay back the favor they owed him, they could only pay it back with their bodies. Lin Yi only wanted to see how Mr. Tang's injury was, whether there was a better way to treat it without surgery, but since Tang Yin was against it, Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. Kong Xiaobo didn't want to be a third wheel. He walked to the side while Lin Yi and Tang Yin were talking. He looked around the room and his eyes suddenly fell on a photo in the bookshelf. There were 3 girls in the photo. One was Tang Yin, and the other was Tang Yin's best friend Lu Xinwen. Kong Xiaobo had some impression of her, but there was another girl that made Kong Xiaobo's eyes light up. Of the 3 girls in the photo, Tang Yin was undoubtedly the prettiest and the most outstanding one, but the other girl was only a little bit weaker than her. She looked so soft and weak, and it made people want to protect her with just one look. Who was this person? Kong Xiaobo's heart started to move again. As for Tang Yin, Kong Xiaobo had completely given up. As long as Lin Yi could catch up with him, he would be satisfied, but this girl? This photo? Kong Xiaobo couldn't help but ask. Tang Yin turned her head towards Kong Xiaobo's voice and saw the photo in the bookshelf. 2 of my best friends. I know this Lu Xinwen, she's also from our school, but this? Kong Xiaobo hesitated. Although it was rude to ask directly, he didn't want to give up. Her name is Lan Fen, she's a good friend I grew up with. Tang Yin clearly didn't want to talk about this anymore. She only briefly introduced Lan Fen and didn't say anything else. Kong Xiaobo replied with an "og" and silently remembered the name. Lan Fen, it sounded pretty good. He just didn't know where he was studying now. She definitely wasn't from first school. If she was, there was no way he wouldn't know her. Although Lan Fen wasn't one of the 3 school beauties, she was definitely a popular girl in the school. She could be ranked in the top 10 of the girls in first school. Kong Xiaobo wanted to ask about Lan Fen's current situation, but Tang Yin didn't seem to want to talk about it. In the alley in front of their house, Lu Xinwen said hurriedly, "Let's go and persuade her." At this time Mrs. Tang also rushed in. She was in the middle of barbecuing when she saw Lu Xinwen rushing into her house. She said a few words to her, but Lu Xinwen didn't hear her. Mrs. Tang naturally followed her in to see what was going on. At the door she heard the shocking news from Lu Xinwen. Lan Fen was Tang Yun's childhood friend, and they had a very good relationship. It was only after that incident that they met. It should have been over after such a long time, but she suddenly heard that Lan Fen wanted to jump off the building. What should she do? Mom, I'll go with Wenwen. Tang Yun didn't say anything else as she pulled Lu Xinwen and ran outside. Hey, be careful. Mrs. Tang hurriedly reminded her. What's wrong? Lin Yi didn't understand. He only knew that someone wanted to jump off the building. Hey, one of Yunner's good friends, Lan Fen, got hurt a few years ago. I didn't expect her to want to jump off a building, Mrs. Tang said worriedly. No, I have to go take a look too. But Mrs. Tang hadn't even finished her sentence when Xiaobo heard Lan Fen's name. He charged out the door with a whoosh, chasing after Tang Yun and Xinwen. Lan Fen. Lin Yi shook his head. No wonder Kong Xiaobo was so nervous. Ah? Lin Yi, your classmate. Mrs. Tang was confused by Kong Xiaobo's actions. Lin Yi, of course, knew why Kong Xiaobo was acting like this. Auntie, let's go, we'll go as well. There were already a lot of people in front of the building and it was quite rowdy. Tang Yun and Xinwen, on the other hand, stood outside the crowd, not knowing what to do. Xiaobo ran over as well, and when he raised his head, he froze. The window on the left side of the third floor was completely open, and there was a girl in white lying on top of it. It was Lan Fen from the photo. Although she looked haggard, she still had a delicate beauty to her. Kong Xiaobo's heart skipped a beat. Fen, I'm Lu Xinwen. Can you hear me? Lu Xinwen made a trumpet with her hands and shouted. However, Fen, who was on the third floor, didn't seem to hear Lu Xinwen's words at all. She was in a trance, and her eyes were empty as she looked into the distance. Fen, go back, it's dangerous. Tang Yun was also nervous and didn't know what to do. The people in the shanty town knew that Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen were Xiaofen's best friends. The crowd automatically opened a path for Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen to pass. When they got to the front, they saw Lan Fen's mother, Song Huiping, standing there anxiously. She didn't know what to do and her eyes were filled with tears. She looked at Fen upstairs and shouted her name, but Fen ignored her. Auntie Song Fen. Tang Yun saw Huiping and quickly asked. Tang Yun, Lu Xinwen, you're here. Hurry and talk to Fen. I don't know what happened, but she locked herself in her room and wanted to jump off the building. Her father went up, but he couldn't open the door and he's contacting the locksmith company. Huiping was anxious, but she still put her hope on Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen. Lin Yi and Kong Xiaobo also squeezed over. Kong Xiaobo looked even more anxious than Tang Yun, and his forehead was covered in sweat. Boss, what should we do? What should we do? Chapter 195. Chapter 195, Shocking Resemblance. Don't jump, please don't jump. What's wrong with you? You're still young, you have the best years of your life. Kong Xiaobo didn't know why, but he was so excited that he wanted to jump up and down. His voice was shockingly loud, as if there was a loudspeaker in his mouth. Kong Xiaobo's loud voice was much louder than Tang Yun's, Lu Xinwen's and Huiping's voices. It stood out in the midst of the noisy crowd. This time the voice attracted the attention of Lan Fen on the third floor. Lan Fen lowered her head in a daze and looked towards the source of the voice. With one look, her face revealed an expression of disbelief. Her eyes also slightly brightened and she became very excited. She muttered to herself. Although her voice was not loud, the people downstairs who were close to her could still hear her clearly. Zhaoming, is that you? You finally came to see me. Lan Fen's lips curved into a happy smile. You came to find me, you didn't abandon me after all. Kong Xiaobo didn't understand what Lan Fen was talking about. He looked at Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen, confused. Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen were confused as well, thinking that Lan Fen was hallucinating. But when they turned around and saw Kong Xiaobo's face, Tang Yun couldn't help but call out in surprise. He and that Kong Ming. Tang Yun felt that Xiaobo looked familiar, but she didn't pay much attention to it. She knew that he wasn't a good person, and that he must have been a bad student at school. Maybe she'd seen him do something bad before, but she didn't think too much about it. Xiaobo looked familiar, but Tang Yun didn't think too much about it. But today, after hearing Lan Fen's words and looking at Kong Xiaobo's face, Tang Yun had to admit that it was similar. It was too similar. It was hard to link the two together if you didn't think about it in that direction, but if you compared Kong Xiaobo and Kong Ming, the two's facial features, nose, mouth, they weren't exactly the same, but they were shockingly similar. Not good. Lan Fen wouldn't mistake him for Kong Xiaoming, right? Don't make any mistakes. Lu Xinwen was also shocked. How could there be so many coincidences in the world? At this time, A boy who looked like Kong Mingming appeared at the scene of Lan Fan jumping off the building. Kong Mingming? From Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen's conversation, Kong Xiaobo could guess something. Lan Fan must have been hurt in the past, otherwise she wouldn't have said those strange things. However, the name Kong Mingming was like a sharp sword, stabbing into Kong Xiaobo's heart. His face twisted as he clenched his fists tightly. Even his breathing became rapid. You said that she mistook me for Kong Mingming? Yeah, you look so much like the man who abandoned Xiaofan. You're not his relative, are you? Lu Xinwen didn't see the strange expression on Kong Xiaobo's face. Chapter 196. The emotional Kong Xiaobo Lin Yi had already moved to the side, allowing Kong Xiaobo to be the hero saving the damsel in distress. Lan Fan had fainted, perhaps from the shock of falling from a high place, or perhaps from Kong Xiaobo hugging her too tightly. Hui Ping felt Lan Fan's nose and let out a sigh of relief when she realized that she was still breathing. Phew. Xinwen gave Kong Xiaobo a thumbs up after seeing that Xiaofan was fine. Amazing hero. You caught her from so high up. Amazing. Xinwen's words reminded Hui Ping that the young man in front of her was her daughter's savior. She touched her daughter's skinny cheeks as she thanked Xiaobo profusely. Kid, thank you so much. If it weren't for your bad hand, Arfan wouldn't even know. Song Huiping was so scared that tears rolled down her cheeks. Yeah, it was scary to think about the situation just now. If Kong Xiaobo hadn't caught her, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Auntie, it's what I should do. Kong Xiaobo's face was a little red. He'd saved Lan Fan purely out of love for her. Someone else might not have been so nervous. Kong Xiaobo wasn't a saint, he wasn't a firefighter, he wasn't a police officer, and he definitely wasn't an Ultraman. He wouldn't have rushed over if it wasn't Lan Fan. Let's not talk about whether or not he could be saved. If he didn't manage to save him and ended up injuring himself or even dying, then the loss would outweigh the gain. It wasn't like this hadn't happened before. Someone saw someone jumping from a building and tried to catch them, only to be crushed to death by the falling person instead. That's nothing? Bro, you're amazing. I Xinwen admire you. Lu Xinwen didn't notice the look on Kong Xiaobo's face. She patted Kong Xiaobo's shoulder excitedly. If you need anything in the future, you can find us. It was just a coincidence. Xiaobo was being truthful. He didn't even know how he'd managed to catch Lan Fan. Was it a coincidence? Tang Yun looked thoughtfully at Lin Yi, who had already dodged to the side. Her lips curled up slightly. What a strange person. The others didn't notice anything, but Tang Yun, who was attentive, noticed something. When Kong Xiaobo was saving people, Lin Yi rushed over, but he didn't go to pick them up. Instead, he pushed and shoved Kong Xiaobo, which made Tang Yun suspicious. Did the rescue just now have anything to do with him? Tang Yun didn't know why she was paying so much attention to Lin Yi. She moved her gaze away from Lin Yi and focused on Xiaofan. An ear-piercing siren sounded from afar. The sirens of ambulances, police cars and fire trucks mixed together as they drove towards the alleyway. However, when they learned that the girl had jumped off the building and was caught by someone, although the firemen were surprised, they asked about the situation and left. The police found a few people from the crowd to make statements and understood the cause and effect of the incident. They could only sympathize with Lan Fan's situation. Since they knew that she didn't jump off the building because she was wronged, the police couldn't do anything about it. After all, Kong Xiaoming's abandonment of Lan Fan wasn't right, but it was just a relationship dispute. It wasn't a crime. The nurses in the ambulance took Lan Fan from Xiaobo's hands and put her on a stretcher, getting her into the ambulance. A middle-aged man who looked like a doctor on duty said to the crowd, "Who is the patient's family member? Come up and follow the ambulance to the hospital. Everyone else, disperse." "I am Xiaofan's mother." Song Huiping walked up and said to the doctor. The doctor glanced at Song Huiping and nodded, "Then follow us." Song Huiping quickly followed the doctor into the ambulance. However, Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun, especially Kong Xiaobo, also wanted to go to the hospital. They surrounded the ambulance. "We are her friends. Can we go with her?" Lu Xinwen asked the doctor. "No, this is an ambulance. There aren't many seats. One family member can come in. Which one of you want to go?" The doctor shook his head and explained. Before Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen could say anything, an excited but urgent voice sounded. They turned around and saw that it was Kong Xiaobo. Kong Xiaobo wanted to rush into the ambulance without saying anything. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and pulled him back. Lin Yi, of course, understood his feelings. However, what was he going to do if he rushed into the ambulance? How was he going to explain his relationship with Xiaofan to Song Huiping? He couldn't say that they just met today, right? They didn't even know each other. It was just Kong Xiaobo's love at first sight. Lu Xinwen, follow the ambulance. Lin Yi pulled Kong Xiaobo behind him and said to Lu Xinwen, "Boss, let me go, please." Kong Xiaobo was very excited. It seemed like he wouldn't give up until he got on the ambulance. "Xiaobo." Lin Yi was speechless. "What are you going to do if you go in now? You can sit in my car and we can follow behind." "That's true." Kong Xiaobo calmed down and nodded embarrassedly. Lin Yi's words woke him up. Indeed, how was he going to explain to Xiaofan's mother if he followed the ambulance now? Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun looked at Kong Xiaobo in surprise. Tang Yun vaguely guessed something. When Kong Xiaobo was at her house, he seemed to be very interested in Lan Fin in the photo. However, Lu Xinwen was confused. She didn't know what was going on with Kong Xiaobo. However, it wasn't the time to ask. The ambulance was still waiting. Lu Xinwen quickly jumped into the ambulance. The door of the ambulance closed and the ambulance sped towards the First People's Hospital. "Are you going?" Lin Yi waited for the ambulance to leave and asked Tang Yun. Tang Yun bit her lips. Although she didn't want to sit in Lin Yi's car, she was worried about Xiaofan. She nodded, and the back seat of the Beetle didn't have a door. They could only get in after putting down the front seat. It was troublesome. However, although Kong Xiaobo was worried about Xiaofan, he didn't forget to create opportunities for Lin Yi and Tang Yun. He gave the front seat to Tang Yun and went to the back seat. Lin Yi had been to the First People's Hospital before. Last time he injured his leg there. Therefore, he didn't need to follow the ambulance. Lin Yi could find his way there by himself. Even if he didn't have the GPS, he wouldn't get lost. Chapter 197. Chapter 197, sad past. Tang Yun pursed her lips. She wanted to say something, but she felt that it wasn't good to talk about other people's matters behind their backs. Without Xiaofan's permission, it wasn't right. "Tang Yun, can't you see through Kong Xiaobo's thoughts? Talk to him about it." Lin Yi was driving, but he was paying attention to Tang Yun and Kong Xiaobo. He knew what Tang Yun was worried about when he saw her hesitation. But Tang Yun hesitated. She could see through Kong Xiaobo's thoughts. If Kong Xiaobo could stay by Xiaofan's side, then Xiaofan might be able to get better. But Xiaofan's life was a bit tragic. Would Kong Xiaobo be able to accept it if she said it out loud? No buts. Kong Xiaobo will be anxious to death if you say it out loud. Lin Yi smiled. Tang Yun sighed and started talking. "Xiaofan, me and Lu Xinwen grew up together in the slums. We have a good relationship. But when we were in the 3rd year of middle school, a boy barged into Xiaofan's life. Kong Mingming." Kong Xiaobo clenched his fist as his expression changed. He had guessed it, but he wanted to confirm it with Tang Yun. Tang Yun couldn't see Kong Xiaobo's expression from the front. She didn't notice the change in his expression. "And it's Kong Mingming. I didn't expect you to remember this name." Tang Yun had only mentioned the name Kong Mingming to Lu Xinwen once. She didn't expect Kong Xiaobo's memory to be this good. It seemed like he really cared about Xiaofan. As Xiaofan's best friend, Tang Yun naturally hoped that Xiaofan could get better soon. She didn't want to live in depression every day. At that time she had consulted a doctor, but the doctor said that it was a psychological illness. If she wanted to recover, it would be best for her to start a new relationship and forget about the past. Although Tang Yun didn't support puppy love, special cases should be treated differently. If Kong Xiaobo and Xiaofan could be together, it was something she wanted to see. However, if Kong Xiaobo knew about Xiaofan's situation, there was still a possibility. Lin Yi saw Kong Xiaobo's furious expression from the rearview mirror. He faintly felt that something was wrong. Kong Xiaoming started pursuing Fin. Tang Yun couldn't help but glare at Lin Yi. Kong Xiaoming's family background is very good and he's very rich. In school he's one of those rich young masters who have hundreds at his beck and call. Fin, on the other hand, was young and ignorant and fell for it. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "Why are you glaring at me? I'm not a hedonistic young master. Plus, I haven't even started pursuing you yet. What happened before was all a misunderstanding." So they got together. Tang Yun continued. In the beginning their relationship was not bad. But later on, Kang Mingming became more and more distant from Xiaofen. Xiaofen asked him what happened and he suggested breaking up with Xiaofen. Of course, Xiaofen didn't agree. At that time she had already fallen deeply in love with Kang Mingming. And she had that relationship with him. Tang Yun's face blushed slightly. Although she was already 18 years old and considered an adult, Tang Yun was still a young girl after all. She was still shy when talking about this kind of thing, so she went to find Kang Mingming to ask about it, but she saw that Kang Mingming got into a taxi with another beautiful woman. Xiaofen chased after the taxi unwillingly, shouting Kang Mingming's name. However, Kang Mingming only looked back coldly and didn't let the taxi driver stop. Lu Xinwen and I wanted to stop Xiaofen, but she didn't listen. She stubbornly chased after the taxi, and at that moment, a large truck drove over and knocked Xiaofen down. Even so, Kang Mingming didn't get out of the car to see Xiaofen. He just left. However, a few days later he transferred to another school and never appeared again. Xiaofen's leg was also crippled. From then on she could only walk with a limp and she couldn't walk for a long time. Usually she had to sit in a wheelchair. After this incident, Xiaofen also dropped out of school. She stayed at home every day absent-minded. Kang Mingming treated her like this, but she still couldn't forget him. She fantasized that Kang Mingming would change his mind. Sai Wenwen and I tried to persuade her many times, but she just wouldn't listen. Fuck. Kang Xiaobo punched the roof of the car. His face was red and his chest was heaving up and down. He was obviously very angry. Kang Mingming, that bastard. The car isn't mine, I borrowed it. Lin Yi sweated profusely. He looked at the car roof that was dented by Kang Xiaobo. He was speechless. Little Chickchin wouldn't kill him, would she? This was too fucked up. Tang Yun heard Lin Yi's words and felt a bit disdainful. Your brother is already so angry and you're still worried about the car? You're a rich young master, so why would you care about the repair fee? Xiaobo didn't seem to hear Lin Yi's words. He was still pounding on the roof with his fists. Lin Yi wanted to cry, but no tears would come out of it. The guy was pretty strong when he exploded. It seemed that he had to get Faubert to repair the car when he got back. He couldn't let little Chickchin see it or else he'd be dead for sure. She probably wouldn't borrow his car anymore. But how should he tell Faubert? Well, he'd say that he was attacked by Chu Pingzhan's enemies. He was there when he talked about the 2 unlucky golden class masters anyway. He'd just say that Xihua sent people to do it. He was too much of a genius, Lin Yi thought. Xiaobo was in a state of extreme indignation. It was as if he could see a frail girl stumbling behind a taxi, looking at the man and the beautiful woman in the car in despair. She screamed at the top of her lungs, wanting to stop the man in the taxi, but she was powerless. Just as her heart was breaking, a truck drove over and knocked her down. The man in the taxi, on the other hand, didn't even get out of the car and left directly. Xiaofen, on the other hand, was lying in a pool of blood. But her heart was still thinking about that despicable man. Kang Mingming. Kang Xiaobo's face became twisted. If it was someone else, Kang Xiaobo wouldn't be like this, but this person was his second cousin brother. The second cousin brother who looked down on him and laughed at him since he was young. Kang Xiaobo let out a long breath and looked at the dent in the roof. He was a little embarrassed. Boss, I was a little too emotional. Forget it, it's nothing. Lin Yi had already thought of a solution. He smiled and said to Kang Xiaobo, Xiaobo, what do you think? He'd go through fire and water, he'd be hot-headed. However, would he continue to date Lanfen after he calmed down? He glanced at Tang Yun and saw that she was still staring at him angrily. What's wrong? Lin Yi was curious about Tang Yun's attitude today. She was indifferent to him before, but after getting in the car she seemed to have changed back to the old Tang Yun. Tang Yun looked at Kang Xiaobo and turned around to look at Lin Yi. Let me ask you something. Lin Yi paused and looked at Tang Yun in confusion. What are you thinking? Tang Yun bit her lips and lowered her head shyly as she asked. What are you thinking? Lin Yi didn't understand. Xiaofen and Kang Xiaobo? Depends on Kang Xiaobo. I'm not talking about him, I'm talking about you. Tang Yun raised her head and looked at Lin Yi. That night I asked you, do you want to be friends with me? Lin Yi didn't think that Tang Yun was still thinking about this. He nodded. Since he talked to his old man and decided to stay here for a long time, he didn't have to worry about anything. Then do you want to play or stay with me in the future? Tang Yun frowned and looked at Lin Yi. Linny, if you just want to play, can you stay away from me, my mom and my family? I'm not Xiaofan. She was young and ignorant, but I'm already 18. I won't fall for your tricks. Ugh. Linny was speechless. He didn't think that Tang Yun would ask such a question. What do I want to play? I don't have that much time to play. Do I look like I'm playing? Fine. If you don't want to play and want to be with me, then don't bother me during this time, okay? Let me focus on getting into university. I don't want to be distracted at this time. Tang Yun's delicate face had a trace of stubbornness. If you still want to be friends with me at that time, then I will agree. Tang Yun's showdown with Lin Yi today was the result of thinking for a few days. Tang Yun didn't know how she felt about Lin Yi. She only knew that he had helped her family a lot and she owed him too many favors. But Tang Yun naturally wouldn't go out with Lin Yi just to repay him. It was undeniable that Tang Yun's heart didn't reject this man who suddenly came into her life. While she was panicking, Tang Yun put on a cold face and faced Lin Yi. Tang Yun was afraid. She was afraid that she would fall too deep. Although she didn't admit that she had puppy love, the hatred she had for Lin Yi was getting lesser and lesser. What replaced it was gratitude and an inexplicable throbbing. Especially after Lu Xinwen asked about her and Lin Yi, Tang Yun's heart couldn't calm down. Even in her dreams she dreamed of Lin Yi. The most infuriating part was that she dreamed of kissing him. It was a strange dream and it didn't feel real. Lin Yi's face wasn't clear in the dream, but Tang Yun knew that it was Lin Yi when she woke up from the dream. She had a wet dream and the first one was Lin Yi. Tang Yun, of course, knew that it was normal to have wet dreams during puberty. The person in the dream was usually the person you liked in real life. This was what Tang Yun saw in a health textbook. But the more it was like this, the more panicked Tang Yun felt. She was afraid that she would slowly develop feelings for Lin Yi and be with him. Chapter 199. Chapter 199. Picking up her wallet with no other choice, Tang Yun decided to lay her cards on the table with Lin Yi. She needed to make things clear to Lin Yi, otherwise Lin Yi wouldn't show up at her house all the time. If Lin Yi was just playing around, then she'd tell him to stay away from her and stop bothering her. If he was serious, then Tang Yun had a deadline, and that was after the college entrance exams. First, she could focus on studying for the exams and not let these things affect her grades. Second, it was a test for Lin Yi. If he was just playing around, then he wouldn't have that much patience. He'd have fallen in love with someone else a few months after the college entrance exams. If Lin Yi really wanted to wait until after her college entrance exams, then she could give him a chance. College was a paradise for love. Tang Yun was a good girl, but she still yearned for a romantic relationship. Lin Yi didn't expect Tang Yun to say something like this. Was it rejection or acceptance? Rejection or acceptance? Lin Yi wanted to say something, but Tang Yun had already turned around and walked towards Kong Xiaobo. Lin Yi quickly chased after her. Tang Yun had returned to her usual calmness as if she hadn't said anything. Tang Yun was still the same Tang Yun from before, but there was a hint of shyness in her eyes, making her look even more beautiful. It made Lin Yi's heart beat faster. He came to the payment window and saw Kong Xiaobo standing there in a daze with the bill in his hand. Lin Yi asked, "Xiaobo? Are you done with the procedures?" "Boss, the deposit is 10,000, I don't have enough." Kong Xiaobo was a little embarrassed. He was the one who rushed over with the bill, but he didn't have the money. "Oh." Lin Yi paused and looked at Tang Yun. "Isn't Xiaofan's mother here?" "Xiaofan's family isn't much better off than mine. We've spent quite a lot of money on Xiaofan's medical bills and we're still in debt. We don't have any extra money left." Tang Yun sighed. "Are you willing to pay for it first? I promise Xiaofan's family will return it to you in the future." Me. Lin Yi wasn't a busybody. Lin Yi never cared about people who had nothing to do with him. However, Xiaofan was different. No matter what, she was someone that Kong Xiaobo was interested in. Lin Yi would naturally help her if he could. However, Lin Yi didn't bring the credit card that Faubert gave him. He didn't spend much money, so he just threw the card in the drawer at home. Other than the 1,000 kuai he got from Sun Jingyi, he had Qintian's wallet. Lin Yi first gave the 1,000 kuai to Kong Xiaobo and then opened Qintian's wallet. There were about 3,000 to 5,000 RMB in the wallet and the rest were all USD. However, the denominations were quite large. There were 500 and 1,000 USD. This kind of USD was no longer in the market, but it wasn't voided. However, it was kept as a collectible because the price of a single USD had exceeded its denomination. No one would spend it with USD. Chintian obviously didn't put so much USD in his wallet for spending, but to show off. Lin Yi had seen a few of these people before and he could see that House Wu was quite powerful. Lin Yi passed all the RMB to Kong Xiaobo. Can you ask USD? Kong Xiaobo gratefully took the money from Lin Yi and ran to the counter. Can I ask if USD is fine? Yes, but you can only pay the deposit, not the settlement. You must pay with RMB, the worker said. Okay, thank you. Kong Xiaobo let out a sigh of relief and ran to Lin Yi. Boss, USD is fine too, but you can only pay the deposit, not the settlement. Okay, go pay it then. Lin Yi handed all the $100 bills he had in his wallet to Xiaobo. As for the $500 and $1,000 bills, the cashier wouldn't be able to recognize them, they'd probably think it was fake. I didn't know that you were so rich. You even have USD, Tang Yun looked at Lin Yi mockingly. Didn't he admit that he was a young master? If he wasn't a young master, how could he have so much money? Oh, you mean this wallet? I picked it up, Lin Yi shrugged. Picked it up? Tang Yun paused and got angry. Did he think she was an idiot? Where did he pick it up? Why couldn't she pick it up? Look at the ID if you don't believe me. Lin Yi took out Chintian's ID and waved it in front of Tang Yun. Tang Yun's eyes widened in disbelief. This wallet really didn't belong to Lin Yi? He really picked it up? You really picked it up? You still dare to spend the money in there? Weren't you the one who told me to pay first? Lin Yi said as he stuffed his ID back into his pocket. Tang Yun didn't know what to say. How worried would he be if you didn't give it to the owner? The owner doesn't need to be worried, Lin Yi smiled. He gave it to me. Wu Chintian would be worried? If he was worried, then let him be. Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Chintian at all. At the end of the day, Chintian could only suffer in silence. Chapter 200. Chapter 200. Fin's illness. When he arrived at room 6, he saw Song Huiping and Lu Xingwen sitting on the innermost bed. It was a 4-person room and the other 3 beds had patients on them as well. Kong Xiaobo didn't care about Huiping's weird stare. He rushed over and let out a sigh of relief when he saw Lanfen on the bed. He knew from the doctor that Lanfen was fine, but he didn't see it with his own eyes, so he was still worried. Yun, you're here. Lu Xingwen saw Tang Yun and quickly greeted her. Her eyes stopped on Lin Yi, who was beside Tang Yun, and a hint of playfulness appeared in her eyes. And when House Fin? Tang Yun felt a little uncomfortable being stared at by Xingwen. She moved to the side, putting some distance between them. Xiaofan is fine, but the doctor said that her body is too weak. She needs to be hospitalized for observation, so she needs to pay a deposit of 10,000 yuan. Lu Xingwen walked over and lowered her voice. But you and I both know about Xiaofan's family situation. Can we help her? I'll let Lin Yi pay for it first. Tang Yun felt uncomfortable after saying that. Lu Xingwen had misunderstood her relationship with Lin Yi, and now that she said that, didn't it prove that she was related to Lin Yi? Otherwise, why would he pay 10,000 yuan for Fin? Lin Yi? Lu Xingwen looked at Lin Yi, surprised. You and him, it's not what you think. I've already told him everything. I'll talk to you when I have time. Let's take a look at Fin first. Tang Yun whispered. Oh. Lu Xingwen didn't believe Tang Yun's words. From Tang Yun's behavior, it seemed like she was in love. Didn't she see Fin's lesson? Was she going to follow after her? It seemed like he could only watch Tang Yun closely from the sidelines. He didn't want her to fall into Lin Yi's trap. Kong Xiaobo rushed to Xiaofin's bed without thinking too much. At that time he just wanted to take a look at Xiaofin. But after rushing over he didn't know what to do next. He wanted to touch Xiaofin's forehead but he didn't dare to. Soon you are? Song Huiping had never seen Kong Xiaobo before. She was a little confused by her daughter's savior's sudden appearance today. Auntie, my name is Kong Xiaobo. Kong Xiaobo awkwardly introduced himself. I'm Tang Yun and Lu Xingwen's classmate. Oh, thank you so much for today. If it wasn't for you, Xiaofin still wouldn't know. Song Huiping remembered the dangerous situation and couldn't help but cry. This child has a hard life. Auntie, don't be emotional. Isn't Xiaofin fine now? Kong Xiaobo didn't know what to do seeing Song Huiping cry. He quickly comforted her. Auntie, it's all in the past. Don't be sad. Yeah, it's all in the past. Huiping nodded and stood up. Young man Tang Yun Luxing, when you guys help me take care of Finn. I need to go back and collect money. The doctor said that I need to pay 10,000 kuai for her. Auntie, it's fine. I've already paid. Kong Xiaobo quickly said and passed the bill to Song Huiping. Song Huiping was surprised. She took the bill and saw that it was 6,000 RMB and 1,000 USD as a deposit. No matter how dumb Song Huiping was, she felt that something was wrong. Not only had Xiaobo saved her daughter, but he'd even gone through all that trouble and put down the deposit. Huiping wouldn't believe it if Xiaobo said that it was all out of kindness. Child, you... Song Huiping's hands trembled as she looked at the bill. So much money, what are you? Kong Xiaobo was embarrassed by Huiping's gaze and quickly explained, Auntie, my boss paid for it first. Your boss? Huiping was puzzled. Where did this boss come from? Auntie Song, my classmate Lin Yi paid for it, Tang Yun explained. It's him. Lin Yi was pushed to the front and could only greet Huiping. Hello, Auntie. Huiping didn't know what to say. She'd thought that Xiaobo was interested in her daughter, but she wasn't too sure about it. Now that she heard that Lin Yi was the one paying for her daughter's hospital fees. Who was this Lin Yi? Young man. You. Huiping looked at Lin Yi, confused. Lin Yi didn't say anything before, so Huiping naturally ignored Lin Yi. Now she saw a person who had no contact with her family pay for her family's hospital fees. Why was he doing this? Auntie, I'm Tang Yun's good friend. Lin Yi said in a flirtatious tone. Oh. Huiping misunderstood. She misunderstood the relationship between Lin Yi and Tang Yun. If Lin Yi was just a friend of Tang Yun's, why would he pay for Tang Yun's friend's hospital fees? Tang Yun also heard the ambiguity in Lin Yi's words. She glared at him and was a bit annoyed. This person really went too far. She already told him everything, but he still wanted more. However, Tang Yun couldn't explain in this situation. The more she explained, the more complicated it would be. She could only pretend that she didn't hear it. At this time, Xiaofun let out a weak moan. Everyone's attention was focused on Xiaofun. Huiping didn't care about Lin Yi and quickly turned around. Xiaofun, are you awake? Where am I? Xiaofun looked at the 4 drip on her hand in confusion and looked around the room. Xiaofun, you're awake? You don't remember? You wanted to jump off a building? Huiping quickly ran over and held her daughter's hand. Jump off a building? Why would I jump off a building? Xiaofun opened her mouth. You don't remember? It's best if you don't remember. Huiping said, Xiaofun, you're sleepwalking again. You dreamt of that bastard. You wanted to jump off a building from the 3rd floor of our house. Xiaofun was shocked by her mother's words. She wanted to jump off a building? Why didn't she remember it at all? Then did I jump? Of course not. If it wasn't for this classmate who caught you downstairs, Xiaofun, you would've. Huiping's voice choked again. Xiaofun seemed to know that there was something wrong with her body. She didn't doubt her mother's words. She quietly turned around and looked at Kong Xiaobo. However, when she looked at Kong Xiaobo, her eyes suddenly froze. It was as if she was about to fall into a hallucination again. Chapter 201. Intermittent mental illness in the ward. Kong Xiaobo, Tang Yun and Xinwen were shocked as well. It was the same every time Xiaofun acted up. She would fall into hallucinations and go crazy for a while before slowly falling asleep. She wouldn't remember anything when she woke up. This time she jumped off the building. It was the result of her going crazy. Intermittent mental illness. Lin Yi sighed faintly. Xiaofun's feelings had been hurt, and it created a psychological barrier. Due to poor guidance, she became like this. However, intermittent mental illness was different from mental illness. It was only the early symptoms of mental illness. With proper guidance and acupuncture, the symptoms could be alleviated and eradicated. Huiping heard Kong Xiaoming's name and looked at Xiaobo, a look of surprise on her face as well. Xiaobo did look a little like that bad guy. Huiping frowned at the thought. No wonder her daughter was acting up all of a sudden. No wonder she jumped off the building. It was all because of this student. But thinking about it, she couldn't blame him for what he looked like. Plus, he was her daughter's savior. How could she hate him? Xiaoming, you still have me in your heart, right? Xiaofun looked at Kong Xiaobo with blurred eyes. She waved her arms, wanting to get off the bed to look for Kong Xiaobo. The needle in her hand almost fell. Xiaobo jumped in fright, afraid that she'd get off the bed. He ran over to her but Fin wrapped her arms around him, not letting go. Xiaoming, you finally came back to see me. You won't leave this time, right? You'll treat me well for the rest of your life, right? Xiaofan hugged Kong Xiaobo and said. Kong Xiaobo was awkward. This was the scene he was looking forward to. Kong Xiaobo thought that it was just a fantasy when he held Xiaofan in his arms. But now that his fantasy had become reality, he couldn't feel happy at all. Because of Xiaofan's illness and also because Xiaofan was thinking about another man. Although Xiaofan was hugging him, Kong Xiaobo, he was another man, Kong Mingming's substitute. Kong Xiaobo wanted to let go of Xiaofan. This kind of hug made Kong Xiaobo feel uncomfortable. He didn't want this kind of hug, he wanted a sincere hug from Xiaofan when she's awake. Anti-song. Kong Xiaobo looked up at Huiping. I'm sorry, classmate. Huiping said helplessly. Wait for me, I'll call the doctor. The only thing Huiping could do was call the doctor. She had no other choice. Wait. Lin Yi sighed slightly. Since this matter happened to him and it was related to Kong Xiaobo, then Lin Yi really couldn't ignore it. The hospital could only use electric shocks or injections to calm Xiaofan down, but no matter which method it would be harmful to the body. Especially since Xiaofan's body was extremely weak right now. If they injected drugs or made her fall into a coma, her body would become even weaker. Lin Yi didn't wait for Huiping to reply and quickly walked to Xiaofan's side. He looked at the foredrip in her hand and saw that the needle was rolling. He pulled it out without hesitation and turned off the foredrip. Then he used the needle to quickly pierce into Xiaofan's Higu, Jianshi, Shenmen, Baihui, Daling and other acupuncture points. Xiaofan slowly calmed down and let go of Kong Xiaobo. Then she quietly fell back onto the bed. Huiping saw that Lin Yi was using needles to pierce her daughter. She wanted to stop him, but Lin Yi's movements were too fast. He was done before she could stop him. In the ward, Tang Yun, Lu Xingwen and Kong Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi in shock. They didn't know what he was doing. Boss you. Kong Xiaobo subconsciously chose to believe Lin Yi. Although he cared about Xiaofan, his instinct told him that Lin Yi would never harm Xiaofan. So he felt that Lin Yi was doing this for a reason. It's just simple acupuncture. Lin Yi shrugged. She will temporarily calm down and fall asleep. When she wakes up, she will be back to normal. Acupuncture? Kong Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Boss, you know acupuncture? Not only Kong Xiaobo but Tang Yun and Lu Xingwen also looked at Lin Yi in surprise. He knew acupuncture? Huiping went to check her daughter's breathing. She was relieved when she realized that there was no problem. Lin Yi used such a simple method to calm her daughter down. It saved her the trouble of calling a doctor. Not only did it save her medical fees, but her daughter didn't have to suffer any pain. Tang Yun felt that she couldn't understand the man in front of her anymore. He was a rich young master, but he didn't seem to be one. However, he was more domineering than those rich young masters. He wouldn't hold back when dealing with people. However, he knew the recipe for barbecue. It wasn't something that could be made easily. Lin Yi wrote it down in just one lesson. This wasn't the big deal. Today when Lan Fin jumped off the building, no one noticed Lin Yi, but Tang Yun did. Was he the one who helped Kong Xiaobo catch Lan Fin? Lin Yi showed his amazing acupuncture skills before she could dispel her suspicions. Tang Yun couldn't help but re-evaluate Lin Yi. He was different from the rich young masters Xiaofan knew. So what if he was different? Tang Yun thought to herself. Even if he was different, she wouldn't be friends with him. Her first priority was to face the exams. She couldn't be distracted by this. Little Tang Yun reminded herself that this was just his appearance. Don't be fooled by him, don't ever. However, the commotion in the room still alerted the doctors. The family members of the patients in the same room went to find the doctors. A doctor ran over. What happened to the patient in bed 4? It's fine, doctor. Sorry for troubling you. She's fine now. Huiping stood up and explained when she saw the doctor. Is everything all right? This was Xuemin's treatment time. Although Guan Xuemin was a little angry, he still picked up the phone after all. Hello? I'm Guan Xuemin. Xuemin's tone was a little unfriendly. Grandpa Guan, I'm Lin Yi. Lin Yi paused when he heard Xuemin's tone. Ah, it's Mr. Lin. Xuemin was a little excited when he heard Lin Yi's voice. He'd learned a lot from Lin Yi's last visit. and he'd been thinking about the prescriptions and cases Lin Yi had given him. It felt like he was suddenly enlightened. Xuemin wasn't sure how to invite Lin Yi for a second visit when Lin Yi took the initiative to call. Xuemin was pleasantly surprised. Grandpa Guan, I'm at Songshan's First People's Hospital, and I need to help a patient with acupuncture. I said I'm your disciple, but the doctors here don't believe me. Please prove it for me, Lin Yi said. Disciple? Xuemin was surprised. I can't do that. I'm more like your disciple. Xuemin wasn't the kind of person who would take advantage of his seniority. If Lin Yi was better than him, then he was better. Therefore, Xuemin didn't dare to call himself Lin Yi's teacher. Alright, I'll pass the phone to the doctor here. Lin Yi didn't explain further. He believed that Xuemin would understand. After Lin Yi finished speaking, he passed the phone to the doctor in the ward. The doctor quickly took the phone in fear and looked at the number on the screen. It was indeed Xuemin's home phone. Every medical student knew about Xuemin's home phone. It wasn't a secret since it was recorded in the school's contact handbook. After confirming that it was Xuemin, the doctor said carefully, Professor Guan, I'm Wang Ligua from Songshan's First People's Hospital. I graduated in 2003 and I'm your student. Wang Ligua didn't care whether Xuemin remembered him or not. He graduated from Songshan Medical College and listened to Xuemin's class. This honor was enough to make others jealous. Oh, little Wang, Lin Yi's knowledge in Chinese medicine is no less than mine. If he has any suggestions, just listen to him. Xuemin was a practical person. He didn't want to become Lin Yi's teacher for no reason. Therefore he could only give a vague hint. Don't worry, Professor Guan. Wang Ligua was shocked. It seemed like Lin Yi had already graduated. To receive such praise from Xuemin. After hanging up the phone, Wang Ligua's attitude immediately changed. I'm sorry, Mr. Lin. I didn't know you were Professor Guan's disciple. I offended you just now. It's fine. Lin Yi waved his hand. It was an emergency. I had no choice. I'll leave the rest of the treatment to you. No problem, Mr. Lin. Don't worry, I'll follow up personally. With this relationship, Wang Ligua would naturally pay more attention to Lan Fen's condition. Song Huiping thought that her words caused trouble for Lin Yi. She didn't know how to explain herself. She didn't expect that one call from Lin Yi would change Dr. Wang's attitude and make him even more respectful. Chapter 203. The loser will confess I know a little. Lin Yi nodded. Boss, is it like what they say on TV where a needle can cure 100 illnesses? Kong Xiaobo asked curiously. I can definitely cure 100 illnesses, but my ability is limited. Lin Yi smiled. Traditional Chinese medicine is broad and profound, and it's said that acupuncture can cure 100 illnesses. But those who truly grasp this skill and master it are few and far between. Oh? Kong Xiaobo nodded. Then Xiaofen's illness. Her illness is mainly psychological, and she should be able to recover if we can help her, Lin Yi said. Kong Xiaobo was just curious and didn't pursue the topic after hearing Lin Yi's words. Boss, why did you drag me away? I wanted to wait for Xiaofen to wake up. Can't you see that her emotions are unstable? She thinks of Kong Mingming whenever she sees you? Lin Yi said. Do you want her to act up when she wakes up? Kong Xiaobo froze. Why didn't he think of that? Indeed, Xiaofen went crazy twice because she saw him. The first time was when she suddenly jumped off the building, and the second time was in the hospital room. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't be like that. We'll come back after she stabilizes, Lin Yi said. Oh, then where are we going now? Are we going back for barbecue? Kong Xiaobo asked. What's there to eat? Tang Yun is in the hospital and you still have the nerve to go back? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. We'll talk about it next time. It's true. But it's not like we didn't gain anything today. Kong Xiaobo was excited to be able to have intimate contact with Lan Fen today. Who is that Kong Mingming to you? In the car, Lin Yi suddenly asked. Previously, when Lu Xinwen mentioned the name Kong Mingming, Lin Yi noticed that Kong Xiaobo's expression was a bit abnormal. This person looked similar to Kong Xiaobo and they both had the surname Kong, so it was not difficult to infer that they should be related. Boss. Xiaobo clenched his fist. I won't lie to you, he's the one I told you about, the grandson of my eldest grandpa, my second cousin. Just as I expected. Lin Yi nodded. Xiaobo, what do you think? Kong Xiaobo lowered his head and became silent. Lin Yi didn't rush him to answer. Instead he quietly drove. In Mingyao's villa. Su Shirhan's concert is amazing, it'd be great if I could be there. Yushu said as she turned off the TV. Yao Yao, why don't you talk to Uncle Chu and ask him to sponsor Su Shirhan for a concert here? Daddy's company isn't some kid's playhouse, you can't just do whatever you want. Meng Yao said as she patted Yushu. Chu, are you big boobs and no brains? My boobs aren't big, it's Yao Yao that's too small. Lingshan is the one who's big. Yushu of course wouldn't allow herself to be deformed. She had the perfect body. What do you mean my boobs are too small? Can't I develop late? Meng Yao raged. With those boobs of yours you'll become a burden sooner or later. Hee. I don't think so, right? Yushu made a face at Meng Yao, not daring to say anything else. She quickly changed the topic. Yao Yao, what should we play? How would I know? Meng Yao was still angry. Maybe we should go shopping? Yushu suggested. No way. Meng Yao was much stronger than Yushu when it came to the big picture. We almost got into trouble at the bar last time. Daddy's company might be in trouble, we can't cause trouble for him. Oh. Yushu was a little disappointed. Shield bro left early in the morning, otherwise we wouldn't be afraid. Do you really think he's invincible? Meng Yao curled her lips. He's only good at teaching Pin Liang and his gang a lesson. What can he do if he meets someone stronger? I think Shield bro's pretty strong. Yushu disagreed. Didn't he come back safe and sound that day? He's fast, isn't he? Meng Yao said. Do you like him? What do I like? Uncle Chu wants a son-in-law. Yushu blushed. Alright, Yao Yao, let's not talk about him. You said it first. Meng Yao didn't hold back at all. Hee. Yushu blinked. Why don't we play hide and seek? Hide and seek? Meng Yao looked at Yushu confused. Hide and seek how? In this villa? It's not that big, we can find it anywhere. Don't we have the garage and the yard? Yushu wasn't someone who could stay idle. We'll each hide once and each person has 10 minutes to find the other person. Whoever can't find the other person loses. Yeah, it's more fun if there's a time limit. Meng Yao remembered the hide and seek they used to play when they were younger. It was a little nostalgic now. Right? Yushu was happy to see Meng Yao agree. Let's set something else, it'll be fun. It won't be exciting anymore. Something? What do you want? Meng Yao asked. Forget about money, I'm not interested. It wasn't surprising after all. Neither of them needed money and 100 or 200 wasn't worth it at all. How low would that be? Yushu shook her head. Let's play something more exciting. What exciting? Meng Yao's interest was piqued. Their 12th year was boring. They could always find time to go on a trip every year, but now that they were in the 12th year, they didn't even have a chance to go far. Every day was between school and home and it was extremely boring. The loser has to confess to Shield bro tonight, what do you think? Yushu suggested as she looked at Meng Yao mischievously. What? Meng Yao didn't know how to react to Yushu's words. It took her a while to respond. Why are you so bad? Aren't you afraid that you'll be the one who loses? Hee, how do you know that I'll lose for sure? But I might not win, so we both have a 50% chance of winning. It's more exciting. Yushu said. But isn't this a little too much? Meng Yao hesitated. It was just as Yushu said, it was a lot more exciting, but wasn't this a little too much? What if she lost? Confessed to Lin Yi? Why didn't he just kill her? Think about it, Yao Yao. You have a big chance of winning. This is your villa, you're more familiar with it than I am. Right? Yushu tempted. Chapter 204. Chapter 204, treacherous in the first round, Meng Yao would hide first while Yushu would search. According to the rules, Yushu would hide in the washroom on the first floor and shut the door. She wouldn't be allowed to come out until Meng Yao rang her phone to let her know that she was safe. Haha, Yao Yao, just wait for your confession tonight, haha. Yushu giggled evilly in the washroom. She'd found a perfect hiding spot before suggesting the game of hide and seek. She believed that Meng Yao wouldn't be able to find it anytime soon. Yushu was confident that she'd win, which was why she'd suggested such a bet. She was sure that she'd win and Meng Yao would lose. Yushu's phone vibrated a while later, it was Meng Yao's number. She hung up the phone and walked out of the washroom. Yushu wasn't in a hurry to look for Meng Yao's hiding place after exiting the washroom. She stood in the living room and started observing the place. This was Meng Yao's house. but Yushu had been living in Mingyao's house since she was 14. She couldn't be more familiar with the place. Mingyao's hiding spot couldn't be a normal place, and it couldn't be some corner of the house. After all, Yushu knew every corner of the house she knew, and Yushu would search those places one by one. As a result, Yushu wasn't in a hurry to search those corners of the house, since Mingyao wouldn't be hiding there waiting for her to find her. A sly smile formed on Yushu's lips as she looked at Lin Yi's room. Lin Yi's door had been left ajar during the concert, and Yushu hadn't gone to look at Lin Yi's room on purpose. She'd glanced at Lin Yi's room out of guilt when she talked about confessing to Shield Bro, and so she'd memorized the appearance of Lin Yi's door. But right now Lin Yi's door was completely shut. Where else could Mingyao be if not in the room? Yushu tiptoed to Lin Yi's room and opened the door with a smile. "Yao Yao sis, come out, I can already see you." With that, Yushu waited for Mingyao to come out of the room with a confident look on her face. But Mingyao hadn't come out of the room for a long time, and Yushu was starting to panic. "Yao Yao sis, don't hide anymore, come out." Yushu walked into the room as she spoke. Yushu wasn't unfamiliar with Lin Yi's room, she'd been there once before when Lin Yi was changing his pants. She'd even blushed when she saw him. Yushu's eyes darted around the room, her computer was on the desk, but there was no one under the desk. Under the bed, there was no way to hide anyone. The wardrobe was basically empty with only 2 or 3 of Lin Yi's new clothes hanging there. The washroom. There was no one there, but there were 2 pairs of Lin Yi's underwear hanging on the drying rack. Yushu was a little puzzled. Where was Yao Yao sis? Where was she? Could she be invisible? Yushu searched the room a few more times, but there was no sign of Mingyao. Chapter 205. Chapter 205. Tragic Yushu was trying her best to squeeze her body into the fence. It was taking a lot of effort. Had she gotten fatter? Why wasn't it as easy as before? Oh, she'd probably grown up. The last time she'd gotten in was 4 years ago when she just moved into this villa. Phew. Yushu let out a long sigh of relief after getting halfway in. She should have looked for the key to the fence if she'd known it was this hard. Yushu wiped the sweat off her forehead and got ready to go deeper, but her chest hurt as soon as she tried. The iron bars were stuck between her 2 bunnies. Yushu wasn't willing to give up as she tried to squeeze her body into the fence again. I can't, it hurts." Yushu's chest was hurting. Wouldn't it hurt to get in there? How unlucky. Yushu realized for the first time that her breast had become a burden. Mingyao was right about it, it was only a matter of time before her breasts became a burden. What a tragedy. Confessing was fine, she couldn't just get stuck like that, could she? Yushu sighed and gave up on the idea of going deeper, preparing to move the other half of her body out. But the next moment, Yushu realized that it was a tragedy for her. She couldn't move the other half of her body out. Wouldn't she be able to get in if she could move it out? She couldn't be that unlucky, could she? Yushu was starting to panic. This wasn't a joke, she'd be a laughingstock if word got out that she was stuck in the fence. Yushu quickly pulled out her phone and called Mingyao. The call went through, but Mingyao hung up after a few rings. Evidently, Mingyao had misunderstood that Yushu was giving her a signal to start searching. Yushu quickly restarted the call and Mingyao picked it up after a few rings. "Shu, what's up? I was just about to go look for you. You have a lot of phone bills, don't you?" "Yao, help, I'm stuck." Well, Yushu was panicking. She was stuck in the fence, unable to get in or out. What was she supposed to do? Mingyao blinked. "Shu, what did you say? What do you mean you're stuck? What's wrong with you?" Yao, come to the storeroom in the villa's backyard. I'm stuck. Hurry, I can't hold on any longer." Yushu said urgently. "Well then wait for me. I'll be right there." Yushu didn't sound like she was making things up. She really did seem to be in trouble. She hung up and ran out of the villa, heading for the storeroom in the backyard. They hadn't even reached the storeroom when they saw Yushu hanging from a metal fence. "Q, what are you doing?" Mingyao asked, puzzled. "Yao sis, save me." Yushu waved at Mingyao as soon as she saw Mingyao. She was really a little scared. She was stuck inside. What if she couldn't get out? Lin Yi wasn't too surprised by this result. He'd expected this to happen a long time ago. He only gave Kong Xiaobo some time to calm down and think about the pros and cons. Her psychological problem can be cured, but her leg. Chapter 206. Chapter 206. Why didn't you say so early? Haha, I've never stopped you from dating her. This is your decision and I'll always support you. Lin Yi said as he patted Kong Xiaobo on the shoulder. But this road might be a bumpy one. If I love her then I'll walk down this path. I need to be sure of my feelings. Kong Xiaobo said with a fist clenched. Boss, I'll be confident as long as you support me. Ah. Lin Yi was just about to say a few words of encouragement when his phone rang. It was the Mississippi. What's up? Lin Yi asked, not wanting to call Meng Yao's name since Kong Xiaobo was right beside him. Lin Yi, where are you? Come home quick. Shu's in trouble. Meng Yao said in a panic. Trouble? What happened? Don't worry, I'll be right back. Meng Yao's words weren't very clear on the phone, but Lin Yi still had to get back as soon as possible. He didn't want to waste time with Yushu in trouble. Boss, what's up? Kong Xiaobo couldn't hear Meng Yao's words but Lin Yi did. Yeah, something happened at home. I'll drop you off at Ningshi Road. I won't be sending you back. Lin Yi said. It's fine, boss. Maybe I can get out now? There's a bus stop up ahead. Kong Xiaobo said, not wanting Lin Yi to send him back. I'll pass by Ningshi Road, it's fine. Lin Yi said as he sped up. The speed limit in Songshan was 60 kilometers per hour, but there were some roads with fewer cars that allowed for speed. It'd be bad if they got caught on speed cameras though. But Lin Yi didn't care about all that. The car was Yushu's, and he was in a rush to get home because of Yushu as well. Miss Chen wouldn't blame him even if he got a fine. Lin Yi dropped Kong Xiaobo off at Ningshi Road and sped back to the villa. Lin Yi charged into the villa after he parked the car. Yao Yao Shu? No answer. Lin Yi frowned. Did something really happen? Did Sihua's men come to the villa? But that was impossible. The villa area had 24-hour surveillance cameras and there were security guards on duty. It was impossible for anyone to cause trouble here. General Weiwu, where's Yao Yao? Lin Yi suddenly saw General Weiwu at the staircase, so he didn't care if it could understand him or not and asked casually. General Weiwu raised its head and looked at Lin Yi before lowering its head again, not saying a word. Fuck you, stupid dog, I'm talking to you. Lin Yi kicked General Weiwu, panicking. Woof. General Weiwu barked and ran out of the villa with Lin Yi towards the backyard. Lin Yi followed behind General Weiwu, confused. He didn't know if it knew where Meng Yao was or if it was just running around blindly. But when he reached the backyard, Lin Yi saw Meng Yao and Yushu standing there, perfectly fine. What happened? Did these two girls have nothing better to do so they decided to play with him? You guys. Lin Yi was just about to ask what was going on when he realized something was wrong. Half of Yushu's body was stuck in the fence and the other half was stuck outside. What kind of position was this? Lin Yi, come quick, Shu's stuck, she can't get out, she can't get in, she can't get out, what should we do? Meng Yao waved at Lin Yi anxiously. Ugh. Lin Yi was a little confused. Shu, why are you in there? I'm playing hide and seek with Yao Yao. I wanted to hide in there but I ended up like this halfway through. Shield bro, help. Yushu wasn't as worried after seeing Lin Yi, but she still wanted to get out as soon as possible. Hide and seek. Haha. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. He scratched his head awkwardly when he saw Yushu's murderous gaze. I'm far from help. I won't die even if I'm stuck in there. I won't die but I can't be stuck either. Yushu panicked. Yao Yao, tell Shield bro your idea. See if you can get me out. Okay. Meng Yao nodded and turned to Lin Yi. You climb over the fence and pull Shu's hand over there. I'll press down on her. There, see if I can get her over there. Meng Yao was too embarrassed to say boobs or boobs in Lin Yi's presence, so she could only use there. Lin Yi flipped over the fence in no time. I'll hold her now? Yeah, I'll count to 3 and you pull. Meng Yao nodded. Lin Yi pulled Yushu's hand. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Meng Yao pressed down on Yushu as Lin Yi pulled. Yushu was on the verge of tears. It hurts so much, I can't take it anymore, let go of me, I'm not going out. Meng Yao quickly let go and Lin Yi didn't dare pull as well. You two are trying to kill me. Woo. Yushu covered her chest with her hands, tears coming out of her eyes. Lin Yi, think of something, what should we do? Meng Yao really didn't know what to do. Maybe we should call the police? Don't Yao Yao, if that woman Lingshan saw me like this, she'd laugh herself to death. Yushu shook her head, dissatisfied. But you can't just be stuck like this. Meng Yao said. I can get her out. Lin Yi interrupted. You can. Meng Yao blinked. Why didn't you say so earlier? What are you waiting for? But you didn't let me say anything just now. I was just doing what you told me to do. I thought you had some good idea. Lin Yi said, putting on a bitter face. You. Meng Yao was pissed off. Lin Yi, hurry up and think of something. Lin Yi, naturally, was just playing along with Meng Yao's antics, trying to tease Miss Chen a little, letting her know how powerful he was, so she wouldn't have to hang a toilet paper on the side to blackmail him all the time. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he reached his hand out, almost touching Yushu's chest. Hey. Shield bro, what are you doing? Yushu jumped, startled. Was Lin Yi trying to take advantage of her? Getting you out. Lin Yi didn't bother with her. He reached his hands out and grabbed the 2 bars on Yushu's chest and back, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the back was fine, but the one in front of her chest made contact with Yushu's chest. Chapter 207. Heibao escapes. It wasn't that Lin Yi didn't want to take advantage of her, but he didn't dare. The miss was right there watching him. Flirting with her best friend? Lin Yi wasn't that reckless. However, this feeling was really not bad. Just touching the wrist was already very impressive. Lin Yi chuckled dryly at Yushu's murderous glare, deciding not to take advantage of her anymore. He exerted some force with his hands and the bars were pulled apart. Done. Lin Yi said as he let go, standing to the side. Yushu tried it out and got through the bars easily. That easy? It's that simple. Lin Yi nodded. That easy? Why did you pull me? Yushu panicked. My chest, it hurts. Ahem. Meng Yao glared at Yushu. Watch your mouth. Yushu blushed a little but didn't care. Shield bro, did you do it on purpose? Yao Yao made me do it. Lin Yi said innocently. I thought her method was the best. Lin Yi, stop trying to drive a wedge between us. Meng Yao wasn't happy about it. What do you mean my method is the best? I know you can pull the bars open. Huh? Lin Yi smiled. If there's nothing else, I'll put the bars back to normal. Don't go through them next time, but you should be fine if you do it, Yao Yao. With that, Lin Yi restored the 2 bars back to their original state. What do you mean? Are you saying that my chest is small? Meng Yao exploded at Lin Yi's words. I didn't say that. Lin Yi sweated. He just said something random and Meng Yao was reacting like that. I'll be going if there's nothing else. Come back here. Meng Yao was pissed when she saw Lin Yi running away. Yao Yao, there's a benefit to having a small chest. You won't get stuck. Yushu said weakly as she looked at the enraged Meng Yao. Shoo. Meng Yao's face darkened as she glared at her. How could you persuade someone like that? Stuck? There are so many big-breasted girls here, but I don't see any of them getting stuck. Only an idiot like you can get stuck. Yao Yao, don't be angry. Pin Liang likes you no matter how big or small your chest is. Yushu said seriously. Shu, did you do it on purpose? What does that have to do with me? Meng Yao was going crazy. You're right, as long as Shield Bro likes it. Yushu nodded. Meng Yao was speechless. She couldn't be bothered to get angry with Yushu anymore. Her best friend was going to die sooner or later. Meng Yao rolled her eyes as she remembered something. Shu, you lost in hide-and-seek, didn't you? Yushu was reminded by Meng Yao, and her vision darkened as she remembered the wager. What did it mean to get caught in one's own trap? Yushu hated herself for talking so fast. Why did she have to play with a wager all of a sudden? Yao Yao says I'm stuck here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to find me, Yushu argued. Nonsense, I could find you even if you weren't stuck. Meng Yao said. Shu, you can't go back on your words. Otherwise, I won't play with you anymore. Oh. Yushu was a little discouraged by Meng Yao's threat. Alright, I'll go. When? Meng Yao knew how weird Yushu was. If she didn't tell her the time, she'd probably drag it out. Dinner time? Yushu wanted to prepare. Yao Yao, you have to give me time to prepare. Alright, dinner time then. Meng Yao nodded. You can't go back on your words. Got it, Yao Yao. Yushu's face was bitter. But what if Shield Bro takes it seriously? That's not good. If he takes it seriously, you'll marry him. You seem to like him. Meng Yao curled her lips. She didn't know why, but she didn't feel comfortable. Well, then if I marry him, you'll marry him too? Yushu acted like she didn't understand. Yao Yao, you're so cunning. You like Shield Bro, but you're using me as the vanguard. Shu. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Who likes him? Meng Yao covered Yushu's mouth. She wouldn't let Lin Yi hear her, would she? How embarrassing. She didn't know what she was thinking. She used to make a joke when she was young and she always took it seriously. She wasn't an idiot, why would she like to be a mistress? Hee hee. Yushu smiled without saying anything. I won't say anything. Yao Yao, you'll cover my mouth again if I do. I'm telling you, you're not allowed to tell him in advance. I'll be watching you. Meng Yao was getting pissed. She wasn't giving Yushu any leeway at all. Oh, that was indeed what Yushu was planning to do. She'd secretly contact Shield Bro and tell him to put on a show with her tonight, but she didn't expect Meng Yao to cut her off first. She wouldn't have pissed Meng Yao off if she'd known this was going to happen. She'd be in trouble after pissing Meng off. She'd thought that Yao Yao would forget about it after some bullsh asterisk ting. Yushu's eyes rolled around, but she couldn't think of a good solution. She sighed dejectedly. All right. Yao Yao, I'll confess. That's more like it. Good kids do what they say. Meng Yao nodded before pulling Yushu back to the villa. Lin Yi had returned to the villa a long time ago. He'd called Faubert to get him to fix his car, but the guy was driving Pingzhan to a business event in a neighboring city. He wouldn't be back anytime soon. Lin Yi got a call from Lingshan not long after he hung up. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before picking it up. Sup? You're not asking me to go arrest someone again, are you? Lin Yi Heibao escaped. Lingshan's urgent voice came from the other side of the phone. Heibao. Escaped? Lin Yi blinked. Yes, just this afternoon on the way to the detention center, Heibao suddenly went berserk, injuring 3 police officers and 2 auxiliary officers. One of them's in critical condition. He's still in critical condition in the hospital. Lingshan said. What? He injured 3 police officers and 2 auxiliary officers? 5 people? Are you serious? Lin Yi blinked. This Heibao wasn't that strong, so how could he injure 5 people? Was this a joke? Chapter 208. The Miss Bringing a Man Home? I'm not joking. Lingshan said solemnly. Lin Yi, I know it's hard to believe. I was shocked myself when I first heard the news, but it's the truth. Heibao was the only suspect in the car? Lin Yi frowned. If Heibao was this strong, he wouldn't have beaten him up that day. Only him. Lin Yi, I know what you're trying to say, but I can say for sure that Heibao did this all by himself. Lingshan said. I don't know if you're familiar with the division of strength in Jianghu, but old Zhang in the police force is also a retired master of the special forces. He's always in the car when escorting suspects, and this time is no exception. He fought Heibao and Heibao was a level higher than him. I believe old Zhang's words. Division of strength in Jianghu? I've heard about it from Jun Bro. Lin Yi found the whole thing a little strange, but Lingshan's insistence meant that there had to be something else going on. Sky, Earth, Xian and Huang. Golden class masters can dominate the cities. That's right, old Zhang's a golden class early phased. He's not as strong as me, but it's enough against normal people. Lingshan said. According to his judgment, Heibao should be golden class late phase peak. Otherwise old Zhang wouldn't have been able to take one hit. Golden class late phase peak. Lin Yi couldn't help but click his tongue. What the hell? How did a weak guy like that become a golden class late phase peak? What kind of joke was this? If he didn't hide his strength from the start, then he must have used some method we don't know of to raise his strength to golden class late phase peak in an instant. Lingshan explained. The latter is more likely. Lin Yi said after some thought. If it's the first, then he wouldn't have to run away after getting caught. He could have killed me when I was beating him up and run away before you guys showed up. Of course, Lin Yi was exaggerating a little. It wasn't that easy for a peak late phase golden class to kill him. Although this division of strength was a relatively common way of dividing, it depended on the martial arts practiced by each person. When people of the same level really fought, there would be a huge difference in strength. That's right, we think so too. Lingshan said. This news will still get out, but I'm calling to remind you that you're the one who sent Heibao in, and I'm worried that he'll take revenge on you. Where do you live? Shall I send some policemen to guard the area? No need. If he comes looking for me, I will send him back to you, Lin Yi said calmly. Peak late phase golden class. Hey, it's good that you're here, then I won't have to go look for you. Lin Yi, I'm not joking with you. I don't know if you understand how strong a golden class late phase peak is. Ling Shan was a little annoyed at Lin Yi's attitude. She was reminding him out of goodwill, but he didn't seem to care at all. Why was this man so sloppy? Chapter 209. Chapter 209, Cunning Shoot. Do you have identification? Lin Yi had a guess as to why the man was here, but he still made sure to check it carefully. This was a critical time after all, and it wasn't the time to be messing around. What if the man was a fake and had come with a box of poison? But I do. The man wasn't expecting Lin Yi to be this careful. He reached for his employee card. Meng Yao and Yushu heard the doorbell ringing as well. Meng Yao remembered that Faubert wasn't the one delivering the food today, and Lin Yi might not know who it was. She pulled Yushu downstairs. She was afraid that Yushu would use this opportunity to contact Lin Yi, so she dragged Yushu with her wherever she went. Assistant Zhang, you're here. Meng Yao saw Lin Yi asking for Assistant Zhang's identification as soon as she stepped out of the villa. She felt a little touched by the guy's attentiveness. Miss Chu, Mr. Li went to a nearby city. I'm here to deliver the food for him. Assistant Zhang's face was filled with danger as soon as he saw Meng Yao. He was pissed that he'd caught Meng Yao cheating with her boyfriend, but he had to act like he didn't know anything. Yeah, I got it. Faubert called me. Meng Yao said as she looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi, this is Assistant Zhang. Just take it when he comes to deliver the food. All right. Lin Yi nodded as he took the box from Assistant Zhang's hands. Meng Yao, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. Lin Yi living here was her dad's arrangement, and she didn't have any dirty thoughts about it. How would she know what Assistant Zhang was thinking? Assistant Zhang handed the box to Lin Yi before leaving in a hurry. He didn't want to stay any longer in an atmosphere like this. Lin Yi shook his head as he watched Assistant Zhang's hurried back. What was the guy leaving in such a hurry for? Lin Yi took the lunchbox and was about to walk into the villa when Yushu rolled her eyes, thinking about how she should interact with Lin Yi in private. Her eyes landed on the beetle in the yard. Shield bro, how's my car? Not bad, right? It's okay. Lin Yi's heart tightened. This girl wouldn't find out that the car was damaged by me, right? Oh. Yushu's mind raced as she looked at Meng Yao, trying to figure out what to say to Lin Yi. Where are my photos? Why is the ornament on the front of my car gone? Shield bro, hurry up and open the door, I'll go take a look. Shu, are you trying to start a conversation? Meng Yao could tell that something was wrong with Yushu. I took that picture when I was 15. I won't look like that anymore. I have to see where it went. Yushu explained. 15 years old. Meng Yao was pissed. Who could grow smaller and smaller? Who could grow back to how they looked when they were young? Wasn't that bullsh** T? What do you mean you won't grow back? I took the picture and put it in the drawer. It'd be bad if Kong Xiaobo recognized me driving your car. Meng Yao couldn't let Yushu talk to Lin Yi alone. Oh okay. Yushu pretended that there was nothing wrong with it. He turned to Lin Yi. Shield bro, you damaged my car. You have to give me an explanation, right? Chapter 210. Reaching an agreement, of course, that wasn't the main thing. What surprised Lin Yi the most was that Yushu didn't show any anger or heartache after seeing her car wrecked. Instead, her eyes lit up with excitement. It was as if her car being wrecked was something to be happy about. Yushu sounded like she cared about it, but Lin Yi could see something else in her eyes. Yushu wasn't angry about her car being wrecked at all. Could it be that she had some ulterior motive? Lin Yi felt that the two girls were hiding something from him as he watched Meng Yao rush them. What do you mean? You're not going to ask me to marry you, are you? Lin Yi said innocently as he looked at Yushu. Ugh. Yushu paused at Lin Yi's words. She was already worried about the confession, and now that Lin Yi was talking about marrying her, she couldn't help but blush. At that moment Meng Yao's phone rang. She took it out and saw that it was her dad's number. Meng Yao didn't want to be distracted at a time like this, but she couldn't just ignore the call. Hello daddy. Meng Yao picked up. Yao, I'm having a meeting in a nearby city. I asked Zhang to send you guys dinner. Is he here already? Peng Zhan's voice sounded from the other side of the phone. Yeah, he just left. Meng Yao was a little impatient. She wanted to end the call as soon as possible. On the other side, Yushu whispered to Lin Yi while Meng Yao was on the phone. Shield bro, put on a show with me after dinner and we'll forget about the car. Got it? What? Lin Yi was just about to ask what show she was going to put on when Yushu interrupted him loudly. Shield bro, you broke my car. You have to promise me one thing. I haven't thought about it yet. I'll tell you when I'm done. Yushu said loudly. She was afraid that Lin Yi's questions would attract Meng Yao's attention. Seeing how secretive Yushu was, Lin Yi understood that she was hiding something from Meng Yao. Lin Yi could have rejected the offer at all, since he was hired by Ping Zhan and Meng Yao was his first responsibility. But Yushu was using the car as an excuse, and Lin Yi could only nod in agreement. Shu, lower your voice. Meng Yao frowned as she couldn't hear her dad's voice clearly. Yao Yao, are you talking with Shu? Alright, there's nothing else. I'll be going back tomorrow, see you later. Peng Zhan hung up the phone in a hurry after hearing her daughter's words. Oh okay. Bye daddy. Meng Yao hung up. His eyes were on Yushu. Shu, what are you trying to do? Nothing. Yushu stuck her tongue out. I want Shield bro to compensate me, but I haven't thought about what I want yet, so I asked him to promise me something. Shield bro, you haven't said anything yet. All right. Lin Yi knew that she was putting on an act, so he agreed. Then it's a deal. Yushu nodded with a smile before turning to Meng Yao. Yao Yao, Shield bro and I've come to an agreement on the car. Let's have dinner. Wow, there's braised anchovies, my favorite lol. Yushu nodded with a grin before turning to Meng Yao. With that, Yushu snatched the lunchbox from Lin Yi's hands and ran into the villa. Meng Yao looked at Yushu puzzled. What was wrong with her? Why was she acting so crazy? Did she tell Lin Yi already? It didn't seem like it. She kept staring at her and Yushu didn't have time to say anything. She looked at Lin Yi. What's wrong with Shu? How would I know? Lin Yi shrugged. If I hadn't seen her chest in the afternoon, I would have thought it was her head. Don't talk nonsense. Meng Yao rolled her eyes at Lin Yi. Don't talk nonsense about Shu. Lin Yi smiled faintly. You've been blinded by Shu and you're still speaking up for her? The two walked into the villa, and Yushu had already placed the dishes on the dining table. She had 3 sets of utensils and each of them had a bowl of rice. Yushu was in a great mood now that her worries were gone. He was almost humming a tune. Of course she couldn't let Meng Yao see that or she'd be done for. Meng Yao was a little confused at how diligent Yushu was, but she didn't say anything. She sat down at her usual seat and saw that Lin Yi was still standing there. She pointed at the other side of the table. You eat too, you can eat with us next time so we don't have to leave room for you. Ah? Lin Yi's status in the family had risen noticeably. From the leftovers they could only eat at the beginning to saving some for themselves, and now they were eating together. It seemed that Meng Yao was slowly accepting the fact that she was a part of the family as well. Yushu on the other hand didn't seem to mind. The girl didn't have a temper, nor did she have a temper and was easy to get along with. It was just that the things she did made people's hair stand on end. Yao Yao, today's braised fish is really good. Do you want to try it? Yushu said as she put a piece of the fish into Meng Yao's mouth. It was delicious. Do you have ADHD today? I don't see you like this usually. Meng Yao couldn't take it anymore. Yao Yao, Yeah. I'm about to take an important step in my life, so I'm excited. You know. Yushu said. Meng Yao didn't know what to say. An important step. Did you really think that confession was real? An important step. Meng Yao wasn't happy at the thought. You're just joking, why are you being so serious? Lin Yi ate the food on the table quietly. Lin Yi didn't like to talk much during mealtimes, especially when it was a topic he couldn't join in on. Lin Yi didn't want to say anything either. Be it Meng Yao or Yushu, both of them were acting weird today. He didn't know what Yushu was talking about when she said he'd play along with her. It was a little weird. Meng Yao thought about how Yushu would embarrass herself later, and the shocked expression on Lin Yi's face after the confession. That bit of unhappiness in Meng Yao's heart vanished. It was time for Yushu to embarrass herself. The girl had been messing with her all these years and she didn't even have the chance to do it. She was the sister after all. For example, if Yushu wanted to eat grilled squid, she'd tell Pin Liang that it was Meng Yao who wanted to eat it, and Pin Liang would skip class and run a few miles to buy some grilled squid skewers, and Yushu would eat them happily. And if she wanted to hear firecrackers during New Year, she'd tell Pinliang that she wanted to hear it. Pinliang fell for it again. Chapter 211. Shu's confession. In actuality, Mengyao had accused Pinliang wrongly. Pinliang had fallen for Yushu's tricks a couple of times, and he'd guessed that Yushu was just messing with him. But it was better to be safe than sorry. What if it was really Mingyao's request? What if that happened once? Wouldn't Pinliang cry tears of sorrow? And so, even if he knew that Yushu was lying to him, he had no choice but to do as she said. He was afraid that it really was Mingyao's idea, and he'd regret it if he didn't do it. And so, Mengyao was looking forward to Yushu's failure. She finished her dinner quickly, and Yushu was still chewing on the fish slowly, pulling out the bones one by one. She started to panic. Shu, why were you eating so slowly? Eating slowly is good for the body after all. I don't have anything else to do anyway, so what's wrong with eating slowly? Yushu mumbled as she ate. Yeah, what's up? Mengyao gritted her teeth. She wasn't the one who had anything to do, but she was the one who had something to do. Keep acting then. Let's see how long you can drag this out. Mengyao watched as Yushu ate slowly, patting her tummy after a long while. I'm full. Yao, you and Shield Bro are both done? You two are so in sync. Is that so? Mengyao humphed lightly. Shu, didn't you tell me that you had something important to say to Lin Yi? Didn't you say that you were about to take an important step in your life? Alright, can you tell me now? I want to hear what you have to say. Lin Yi was about to go back to his room after dinner when Mingyao's words reminded him of what Yushu had said to him. He looked at Yushu confused. What did she want to say to him? Was she going to play along with her? Yeah. Then I'll say it. Yushu looked at Mengyao, then back at Lin Yi. She was a little embarrassed now. Hurry up. Mengyao urged. Bro, I like you. Actually, I've had a crush on you for a long time now. Yushu stood up all of a sudden and put her palms together in front of her chest as she looked at Lin Yi, her heart pounding a little as she recalled the scene of a girl confessing her love under the tree when she cleared the game. Ugh. Lin Yi blinked as he remembered Yushu's reminder. Wasn't this what they called acting? At the thought, Lin Yi stood up excitedly and grabbed Yushu's hand. Lilsa Shu, I like you too. Actually, when I first came to this villa, I started to like you. It was just that he had never dared to confess. Actually, I really like you and Yao. Ahem. Mengyao coughed twice as she listened to Lin Yi's words getting more and more unreliable, dragging her into the mess as well. She was getting more and more uncomfortable. What the hell was Lin Yi talking about? Accepted Yushu's confession? This guy can't be that shallow, right? Why did he accept Yushu's confession just like that? Yao, what are you doing? Yushu followed Mengyao up to the second floor, confused by Mingyao's reaction. Shu, why doesn't he believe your confession? Mengyao didn't know what she was talking about. Her emotions were all over the place. Oh, maybe it's because people don't always believe my words. Yushu rubbed her head. Do I always do stupid things? Maybe. Mengyao nodded. Alright Shu, I'm sorry I went overboard today. I shouldn't have forced you to confess to Lin Yi. It's not good for your reputation. Thank goodness Lin Yi didn't believe it. How else would you get a boyfriend? You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.